When we begin to speak about the breath as a gateway to the present moment, we are not talking about something mysterious or hidden. We are pointing to the most immediate and obvious fact of our existence, the rhythm that has been with us since the first moment we entered this world. The breath is so close to us, so natural, so constant, that most of the time we overlook it. We chase after distant ideas. We run after grand achievements. We fill our minds with endless streams of thought. But rarely do we pause to notice the very movement of life that is carrying us from one second to the next. The breath does not demand attention. It does not raise its voice. It simply flows quietly. Yet in its quietness lies a great power, a door to a deeper way of living, a way of living fully awake in this very moment. To understand why the breath can serve as such a gateway, we need to reflect on how our minds usually operate. Most of the time, the mind is scattered, pulled into the future by hopes and fears, or dragged into the past by regrets and memories. Very little of our energy is truly here, in the place where life is actually happening. When we bring awareness to the breath, something begins to shift. The wandering mind starts to find an anchor. The storm of thoughts slows down, not because we force it into silence, but because the mind discovers a rhythm that is steady, natural, and ever-present. The breath becomes like a gentle companion, reminding us, you are alive, you are here, you are breathing now. This simple recognition is not small. In fact, it is the foundation for all deeper practice. Without learning how to return again and again to the present moment, we are carried endlessly by the waves of distraction. We may talk about wisdom, compassion, or liberation, but without presence, these remain only ideas. The breath, however, is not an idea. It is real, immediate, and undeniable. It is happening now, and when we attend to it, we step out of the dream of thoughts and step into the living reality of this moment. You may have noticed that when you are anxious, the breath becomes shallow and tight. When you are angry, it becomes heavy and rough. When you are calm, it becomes slow and smooth. In this way, the breath reflects the state of the mind and body. By paying attention to it, becomes both a mirror and a teacher. But we must also be gentle. The breath is not something to control or manipulate. If we try to hold it, change it, or force it, we miss the point. The practice is not about creating a special kind of breath, but about meeting the breath as it is. If it is short, we notice it is short. If it is long, we notice it is long. If it is rough, we notice it is rough. By allowing the breath to be exactly as it is, we also learn to allow ourselves to be exactly as we are. This is not laziness or passivity, but a deep acceptance that opens the way to transformation. Change happens not because we fight against what is, but because awareness itself has a purifying power. It also reveals truths that are usually hidden. We see that the breath is not permanent, it comes and goes. We see that it is not fully under our control. Sometimes it is deep, sometimes shallow, sometimes smooth, sometimes uneven. We see that it is not separate from the rest of life. It moves in harmony with the body, with the mind, with the world around us. Through the breath, we begin to sense the deeper patterns of existence, the flow of change that touches everything. To begin with the breath may seem simple, almost too simple. But this simplicity is its strength. Because it is so close to us, so constant, it is always available. No matter where we are, no matter what we are doing, the breath is there, ready to bring us back, ready to remind us of what matters. And in the quiet space where we meet it, we may discover that the present moment is not empty or dull, but alive with richness, peace, and clarity. So when we speak of the breath as a gateway, we are speaking of the most direct and human way to step into awareness. We do not need complex theories or distant journeys. We only need the willingness to pause, to notice, to breathe, and to be here. And in being here, we begin to awaken. When we begin to observe the body with awareness, something subtle yet very powerful happens. At first it may seem simple, almost too simple. Just noticing the presence of this body sitting, standing, walking, lying down. But this is where the practice begins to reshape our relationship with ourselves. Normally we move through life identified with the body, taking it as me or mine. When it feels good, we say, I am comfortable. When it feels pain, we say, I suffer. When it is praised for being attractive, we feel proud, and when it is criticized or it ages, we feel shame or fear. But when we start to observe the body with clear awareness, this shift opens the doorway to wisdom. Over time, as awareness deepens, the body begins to reveal its truth. We see that the body is never still for long, even when we sit completely quiet. And because it is not stable, it cannot be a reliable source of permanent satisfaction. When we look closely, we also see that the body is not under our complete control. Whenever the mind wanders into past or future, returning attention to the body, to its posture, its sensations, its breathing, brings us back to now. This is why body observation has been placed as the foundation of deep practice. It is like anchoring a ship so it does not drift away in the winds and waves of thought. With this anchor, we gain stability. With stability, insight arises. The more intimately we observe the body, the more compassion also awakens. We realize how fragile it is, how it endures pressure, fatigue, pain, and yet carries us through every moment. Instead of only criticizing the body or being dissatisfied with its appearance, we begin to hold it with kindness, like a caretaker looking after something borrowed. This compassion naturally extends to the bodies of others. We understand that everyone is living in a body subject to the same conditions, the same vulnerabilities, the same inevitable changes. Seeing this, the heart grows softer, more forgiving, less quick to judge. In this way, awareness of the body becomes not only a path to wisdom, but also a path to love. Through continuous observation, day by day, we uncover these truths. The body teaches us directly, without philosophy, that everything is changing, everything is conditioned, nothing can be clung to as a permanent self. To walk this path is to slowly free ourselves from illusions and to step closer to peace. When we begin to watch the breath, it may seem like nothing special. It is simply air moving in and out of the body, something that has been happening since the day we were born without us ever needing to control it. But in meditation, this ordinary rhythm of breathing becomes the most natural anchor for the mind, waiting for us to give it our full attention. By returning again and again to this living rhythm, the mind begins to soften and settle, like a lake becoming still after the wind dies down. At first, the breath may appear uneven, restless, or even uncomfortable to stay with. The mind will want to wander, to escape into thoughts about the past or plans for the future. Sometimes it may feel as though the breath is too shallow or too heavy. But this is part of the natural process. When we continue to rest our awareness on breathing without judgment or force, the rhythm slowly finds its own balance. The body knows how to breathe. We do not have to interfere. Our task is only to observe with patience. Over time, we notice that the breath becomes smoother. And by seeing this clearly, our grip on clinging begins to loosen. Breathing is also deeply connected to emotions. When we are anxious, the breath is tight and shallow. When we are angry, it becomes fast and heavy. When we are calm, it flows slowly and evenly. By bringing awareness to the breath, we can notice these subtle changes and understand our inner state without needing words. Sometimes simply by staying with the breath, the emotional storm inside us begins to quiet down. The breath becomes like a kind companion, reminding us that even when the mind is full of turmoil, when we first sit down to observe the breath, what usually confronts us is not silence, but noise. Thoughts pull us toward the past, projecting memories, regrets, or replaying conversations that already ended. At the same time, thoughts pull us toward the future, spinning out plans, fears, or desires about what might happen. The mind leaps like a monkey from branch to branch, hardly staying still for more than a second. And yet, the breath continues steadily, like a faithful friend that never abandons us. The breath may feel shallow or rapid. When the mind is calm, the breath often feels smooth and unbroken. This connection teaches us something profound. The body and mind are not two separate realities, but part of the same flow. To calm the breath is to calm the mind, and to calm the mind is to soften the breath. As this relationship becomes clear, we stop seeing the practice as a struggle. It is not about fighting against thoughts, but about harmonizing with the breath until the mind naturally settles. There is also an important insight that arises at this stage. We begin to see that attention is not something fixed. It is dynamic and alive. Sometimes it narrows onto the breath in exquisite detail, feeling each subtle movement. Other times, it opens into a broader awareness that includes the whole body and the quiet around us, or subtle flows of energy moving through us. The body is not a single object, but a living process. Every cell is constantly changing, every breath renewing, every heartbeat rising and fading. By paying attention, we learn to witness this process directly. We no longer take the body for granted, we see it as a teacher. Awareness of the body brings us into intimate contact with impermanence. The sensations that arise do not stay. They come and go like waves on the ocean. A small itch may appear, then vanish. Tension in the shoulders may build, then soften. Even the breath, the most constant rhythm of life, is always changing. Each inhalation is slightly different from the one before. Each exhalation unique. Observing this, we realize that clinging to permanence is futile. The body shows us the truth. Life is a flow, not a fixed possession. At the same time, awareness of the body helps us see the nature of suffering and ease. When the body is restless, tense, or agitated, we feel discomfort. But when we bring kind attention to it, even pain can transform. Instead of fighting with an ache or resisting fatigue, we learn to observe them with patience. This shift of relationship often lessens the suffering. What we once called pain becomes a changing dance of sensation. What we once avoided can become a teacher of resilience and compassion. The body also reveals the interconnectedness of mind and matter. When we are anxious, the body tightens. When we are joyful, it lightens. When anger arises, heat or pressure may be felt in the chest or face. When kindness fills the mind, the body softens. By observing this intimate link, we understand that body and mind are not two separate realities, but two aspects of one living process. Caring for the body is caring for the mind, and calming the mind soothes the body. This insight is deeply practical, showing us how to live in balance. Meditation on the body is not a cold analysis. It is a warm and gentle embrace of life as it is. To feel the ground beneath our feet, the rise and fall of the breath, the beating of the heart. These are reminders that we are part of the living world. We are not floating apart, lost in abstraction. We are here, embodied, breathing with the trees, moving with the rivers, pulsing with the stars. Awareness of the body roots us in reality, making each moment sacred. By returning again and again to the body, we find a trustworthy refuge. Thoughts may wander, emotions may storm, but the body is always here, offering a doorway back to the present. Every step, every breath, every sensation is an invitation to wake up. In this way, the body is not an obstacle to spiritual life, but the very path itself. Through it, we discover patience, wisdom, and peace. When we move deeper into the practice of using the breath as the gateway to the present moment, something begins to shift in the way we experience time itself. At first, breathing is simply an anchor, something to bring us back whenever the mind drifts away into thought or distraction. But as the practice matures, the breath is no longer just an object to focus on. It becomes a doorway, a threshold, through which we step into a new relationship with reality. Every inhalation and exhalation becomes a complete experience, not a step toward somewhere else. In daily life, we are so conditioned to treat the present as a stepping stone, something we rush through in order to reach a future that we imagine will be more fulfilling. In the rhythm of breathing, we see the truth of impermanence directly. No breath can be held onto. We cannot freeze the in-breath or cling to the out-breath. Each one arises, fills, fades, and passes away. In recognizing this, we begin to loosen the deep tendency of the mind to cling to all things, experiences, people, possessions, even our own identities. The breath teaches us to let go, not by intellectual reasoning, but by the most intimate and undeniable experience. Each exhalation is an act of release. Each inhalation is an act of beginning again. And through this cycle, we learn that letting go is not loss but freedom. We discover that renewal comes not from forcing life to conform to our desires, but from surrendering to the flow that is already here. Another important dimension unfolds when we stay present with the breath long enough. The sense of a separate observer begins to soften. Normally, always changing, always flowing. The meditator begins to notice how each inhalation is a birth and each exhalation is a letting go, a small rehearsal of life and death happening in every moment. This realization is not intellectual but experiential, felt in the bones and in the quiet spaces of the mind. It is in this quiet rhythm that wisdom naturally ripens.